I'm Laura Hansen. Tonight we're looking at a quiet cultural shift playing out on concrete rectangles across New York City. The story started as a quirky lifestyle piece, pickleball courts as dating hotspots. But scratch the surface and you find a bigger pattern: how a generation worn down by swiping is rediscovering courtside chemistry, and how that ripple is starting to touch local business, nightlife, and the bottom lines of billion-dollar apps. New York has a habit of turning the ordinary into a scene. A bodega becomes a brand, a stoop becomes a stage. Now, a taped-off grid with a portable net is becoming a mixer. The rules are simple, the paddles are cheap, and the vibe is open play. Show up, stack your paddle, wait your turn. And waiting, it turns out, is the social engine. If you've ever stood in a weekend queue for a crowded city court, you know what I mean. You're not at a bar. You're not constrained by a profile. You're present, moving, laughing, failing out loud. Strangers become doubles partners. Partners become someone you text next week. The post put a name to it, but New Yorkers had already been feeling it. Organic encounters in a city that perfected the algorithmic alternative. There's a practical logic behind the trend. Pickleball has a low barrier to entry. You can be good enough in 10 minutes to hold your own. That makes the sport inclusive by design. No intimidation tax, no expensive learning curve. It's mixed skill, mixed age, mixed everything, and all of that creates surface area for conversation. The city's version of the game adds its own frictions and flourishes. Courts are scarce relative to demand, especially on nice days. Open play etiquette rotates people in and out every game to 11. That turnover makes the bench matter. Benches breed banter. You trade tips and commiserate over shanks and net cords. You learn first names. You remember sneakers. You notice who cheers for everyone and who quietly carries a team. It's human texture you can't compress into a bio. Singles in their 20s and 30s are responding to that texture. Swipe fatigue isn't an abstract concept anymore. It's a lived experience for anyone who has spent nights toggling between witty lines and dead air. In contrast, a court offers a very specific promise. You will be in motion, you will interact, and you will know something real about someone within 15 minutes. How they handle pressure, how they deal with a bad call, whether they laugh at themselves. New York, like any great city, has always staged its meet-cutes in public. Bookshops, dog runs, gallery openings, volunteer shifts. Pickleball is simply the newest plaza. Because of its tempo, rallies punctuated by breathers, it rhythmically invites contact. The game exists in quick bursts. The conversation lives in the intermission. The New York Post didn't invent the phenomenon, it surfaced it. And once you see it, you start connecting dots: pop-ups in parks, repurposed gym floors, and seasonal installations pulling crowds, group chats forming around court times, local coffee shops quietly moving more cold brew, athletic shops selling out of paddles and court shoes that never used to move. The impact is measurable even without a spreadsheet. Stand near a busy court on a Saturday. You'll see branded caps from places you've never heard of, tote bags from local cafes, and a steady stream of takeout containers perched along chain-link fences. Every hour of play is an hour of peripheral commerce. And that's before you count the lessons, clinics, and league fees that convert a casual crush into a weekly appointment. There's also an etiquette economy. Newcomers ask regulars for rules. Regulars obligingly explain. Kitchen line, dinks, third shot drops. Micro-instruction becomes a pretext for connection. Nobody is leading with resume lines. They're leading with where to stand on a return. It's efficient intimacy, skill talk that doubles as small talk. You can feel a generational recalibration here. The youngest adults came of age inside the app economy. Their social lives were optimized by A/B tests and machine learning. The thrill plateaued. Now the pendulum is swinging towards something less efficient and more alive. A double date with gravity. A social graph built by proximity and repetition. For the companies that built fortunes on frictionless discovery, this is a problem. Even a small shift in attention from endless feeds to physical courts matters at scale. The plausible villain in this story isn't a person. It's a product category that has trained us to believe meeting someone should be detached, transactional, and constant. If enough New Yorkers decide that an hour in sneakers beats an hour in swipes, the engagement charts will feel it. Will apps fight back? Of course. Expect algorithmic tweaks pitched as quality over quantity, subscription tiers promising better matches, or an uptick in brand-sponsored IRL nights at venues that look suspiciously like pickleball clubs. Technology rarely surrenders market share without a campaign. But it's hard to digitize the energy of a rimmed shot and a shared grimace. You can simulate the outcome. You can't replicate the process. Domino effects are already visible. Bars near parks are adjusting happy hour windows to catch post-play crowds. Athletic apparel stores are spotlighting pickleball lines. Event companies are bundling court reservations with drink tickets, dressing it up as a social rally. Fitness influencers are hosting rec nights that blur the line between lesson and mixer. Even corporate teams are sniffing around for employee engagement perks that don't feel mandatory. When a sport slips from hobby to habit, the city's commercial nervous system rearranges itself to serve it. There's a flip side. Popularity creates tension. Public courts are finite. Noise travels. Not every neighbor loves the Pok Pok soundtrack. And if singles start treating open play as a dating marketplace, other users, the retired doubles crew, the parents teaching kids, can feel displaced. Space in New York is always political, even when the politics are informal. The courts can't carry every social function at once without friction. Then there's the question of access. As demand grows, pay-to-play venues step in to monetize scarcity. That can be good. More courts, better lighting, consistent surfaces. It can also create a quiet tax on the very spontaneity that made pickleball social in the first place. When play requires a membership and a booking window, the walk-up magic thins out. The dating dynamic shifts with it, from serendipity to scheduling. Still, the core dynamic is stubbornly resilient. The game is collaborative. You share wins. You absorb losses. You communicate in gestures as much as words. That collaboration is what people are starving for after years of curated feeds. We've normalized an online world where a date begins with a negotiation and a gut check against being catfished. A court date begins with a serve. The stakes are lower, the data richer. To understand how sticky this is, imagine one typical Saturday at a busy Manhattan or Brooklyn site. Courts open by 8. Early risers run drills. By 10, the rotation board is full. Every game cycles fresh pairs. Each pair is a tiny experiment. By noon, you've played with 8 different personalities. Some aggressively poach at the net. Some hang back and lob. Some apologize too much. Some never apologize. You learn what works with whom. You learn what you can carry and what you should set down. In a small way, you practice relationship dynamics in public. Now, overlay money. If a single court can host, say, 4 players every 15 minutes, that's 16 players an hour. Over an 8-hour prime window, that's 128 player slots per court per day. Multiply across a cluster of courts, and you've got hundreds of people passing through a space primed for conversation. Even if a modest percentage peel off for a drink nearby, that's new revenue. Even if a modest percentage trade numbers, that's a social pipeline the apps didn't mediate. And the pipeline isn't just romance. It's friend groups, roommates, job leads. We tend to underestimate the power of weak ties because they don't show up as features in a feed. But cities are built on weak ties. They're the fibers that keep us upright when the big, obvious connections, work, family, get strained. A court with a chalked kitchen line becomes a factory for those fibers. Skeptics will say this is just a fad. They said the same about running clubs, trivia nights, even co-working. The formats change. The underlying need does not. Humans want to belong to something larger than their own screen. New Yorkers, in particular, want to feel like their free time is shared time, not just occupied time. What about safety and etiquette? They matter. Organizers, whether formal or impromptu, are already establishing norms. Rotate fairly, welcome new players, be honest about skill level. Don't turn public courts into private lessons during peak hours. Keep the celebrations big and the trash small. These aren't rules for rules' sake. They're the social scaffolding that keeps something inclusive from calcifying into a clique. Age also plays an interesting role. The audience for this show skews older, and many of you are already in on the secret. Pickleball's original adoption curve was steeper among retirees and older athletes. You built the community that the younger crowd is now discovering. That cross-generational overlap, grandparents teaching drop shots while 20-somethings chase dinks, might be the city at its best. It's rare to find a sport that allows that kind of intermixing without pretense. There are warning signs to watch. If the singles scene overwhelms open play, if the bench starts to feel like a casting call, that will push away the people who aren't there to flirt. If the monetization wave prices out casual use, the ecosystem will tilt toward exclusivity. If noise and congestion trigger backlash, courts will be throttled just as the community flowers. Balance is the mandate, and New York usually finds it, messily, after a few loud community board meetings, but eventually. As for the dating apps, they're not going away. They remain essential tools for many, and they solve real problems, especially for people outside dense urban cores, or for those whose identities or schedules make in-person discovery difficult. But in a city like New York, where sidewalks and parks do half the work of nightlife, the apps are meeting competition from something older and weirder: life. Unscripted. The post's headline might have sounded cheeky. It wasn't. It captured the way a pastime is becoming infrastructure. Pickleball courts are doing what subway platforms, diners, and stoops have always done here, creating unplanned overlaps. And in an era where so much meeting is transactional, that overlap is precious. For the local businesses paying attention, the strategy is straightforward. Don't try to own the court, serve the court, offer secure places to stash a bag, set out a water cooler and a chalkboard with tournament dates, open 10 minutes early on weekends, put a small discount on receipts for people who show a paddle, stock a couple of communal phone chargers by the window and label them. You're not selling food and gear, you're selling adjacency to a culture that renews itself every sunny day. For parks departments and community groups, the mandate is clarity. Postable schedules, transparent rotation systems, a few posted lines about etiquette, a willingness to experiment with striping more hybrid courts in low-use corners. And when the noise complaints come, and they will, show up to mediate with data, not shrugs. For singles navigating this new terrain, the advice is basic and boring and effective. Play the long game. Introduce yourself on the bench. Offer a sincere, nice get. Rotate with intention. Don't monopolize a partner because you think there might be a spark. If there's something real, you'll see them next week. Respect the space as a public good first, a social stage second. And for the apps watching all of this, lean into what you can't replace. Facilitate. Don't try to dominate. Help people find the open play hours and the clinics. Offer safety tips for IRL meetups that start on the sideline. The more you fight the analog turn, the more users will notice how much they've missed it. New York has a stubborn way of reminding us that the best parts of city life still happen without a login. A chalked line, a plastic ball, 4 strangers learning each other's names the old-fashioned way, by asking. Romance may or may not follow. Friendship often does. And for a generation told that love lives in the cloud, that's a quiet revolution. I'm Laura Hansen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the sidelines.